Well, good evening, everybody. And before we get into tonight's session on real estate after dark, I've got something that I want to share with you. And maybe you've heard it before, maybe you haven't. But I heard this for the first time years ago. I was a kid. So, if you're familiar with New Orleans and you know of an area called the French Quarter, there's a bar down there called Lafitte's, right? So Lafitte's used to be a blacksmith shop way back in the cut. To this day, still doesn't have electricity inside the bar. You go in there, they have candles and everything, and it's just a real low lit kind of area. So one day, Duck walks into the bar, goes up to the bartender, hops on the stool, says, "Bartender, you got any grapes?" Bartender looks at the duck, says, "No, we are a bar. You want a hand grenade? We got one. You want a hurricane? We got that. You want beer, whiskey? We got that. We don't have grapes." Duck looks at the bartender and says, "Ah, all right." Hops off the bar, leaves. Next day, Duck walks back into Lafitte's, hops up on the bar. "Hey, bartender, you got any grapes?" This time the bartender kind of rolls his eyes. Says, "Look, you were in here yesterday. You were asking about these grapes. I told you. You want a hurricane, a hand grenade, whiskey, beer? We got that. We don't have grapes. Matter of fact, if you come in here again and you ask me for grapes, I'm going to nail your bill to the bar. I'm going to pluck your feathers and I'm going to put you in a pot of gumbo. So long as we understand each other, we're having a good day." Duck looks at the bartender and says, "Sorry, bud." Hops down, waddles out of the bar. Next day, Duck comes into the bar, waddles up to that stool, gets up there, looks at the bartender and says, "Hey, bartender." Bartender looks over at him like, "Oh, yeah, all right. Yeah, what do you want?" Duck says, "You have any nails?" Bartender says, "No, we don't have any nails." About that time, the duck goes, "Well, in that case, do you have any grapes?" All right. So I didn't say it was funny. I didn't say it was a lot of payoff to it. I just said that I heard this joke years ago. Anyway, I'll stick to what I'm good at, which is real estate. Let's get into it. Let's see. Let me just get some of these things put up here. There we go. Richard, I'm glad that you were able to appreciate it. So let's see. All right. So tonight we've got we don't have a guest on. So I really need to go back and forth with people that might be watching. So please feel free to engage, ask questions. Let's talk about, what's going on in the market. What are we seeing? And I will say, I'm going to bring this article back up. This is from, it's called DOS Law. And they actually provide, myself and a lot of other private money lenders with our legal documents whenever we go to secure a loan or something like that. And we have promissory notes, mortgages, etc. Anyway, they do a lot of, they do a lot of great content for keeping people alert in certain spaces. And I'll just go ahead and present this right quick because I'm sure that you don't want to just sit here and stare at my face the whole time. So there we go. Court ruling reinstates. Let me change this. Great. Now I can eat my grapes while we continue talking through this. So February 24th, yesterday, businesses are now required again to submit the beneficial ownership information, the BOI reports. Now, that just means that the Eastern European or the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Texas, they've lifted their prior injunction. And that's what temporarily blocked the CTA's enforcement. So now the previous decision had it that the court lifted the injunction, meaning that now FinCEN must enforce mandatory reporting in accordance with the CTA. It's no longer voluntary. All applicable entities must file. All right, so this is kind of an important part. The deadline has now been created to be March 21st. Potential regulatory and adjustments. They're looking at changing some things, so it could kind of come back and forth. Hell, could have another injunction filed, and it could be drug out for years. What you have to determine for yourself is, are you willing to, stay on top of it and really just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? Or are you going to go ahead and do it now? Or you're just going to ride it out? I'll be honest with you. Last year we did, I think I have 3 outstanding. So I'll probably just go ahead and do those last 3. So another thing to note, if you file an LLC, you have, in 2024, January 1st, 2024, or, past that time frame into today, you've got 90 days to file for your BOI, for your FinCEN. Problem is, if you've had this LLC prior, then you've got until March 21st. So I would say that if it's something that if you have an LLC, even if you have one that you thought you dissolved or whatever, or you just let it lapse, go back in, look at it, and make sure that it is fully dissolved. And if it was dissolved in 2024, you still have to file, according to what I read that one time last year while I was filing the majority of ours. So, what you going to do? Besides, just say thanks to the government for their oversight. You gotta love it. All right. Is anybody out there? Am I just talking to myself? Because if I am, I could do that off camera. So, do we have anybody else on here? Waving back at you, baby. If I didn't get any other content tonight, at least I got the duck joke. Let's see. All right. Cool. Just making sure I've got this. So the next thing, I don't know. Should we do that now? Kathy, are you, if you're watching, should we go ahead and do the cash out refi screen share, or should I do that somewhere else? All right, here we go. You know what? Let me go ahead and share this into a couple of the investor groups. That way we can share it to that audience. All right. Okay, maybe just on the school committee. All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to give you a little teaser, and then I'll turn off the Facebook and YouTube streams. But so we've been doing this in April. Will be our 10th year investing in real estate, and I know some of you that have been with us for for years. You've heard me say this, and it sounds probably a little tiresome to you. But we did. We started with $6,000 in 2015. And over that time, we've been very lucky. I'm not I'm not taking away from that part. We have been extremely lucky, blessed, favored. Um, and with that, a lot of it is that, I do find that the harder I work, the luckier I get. So I would say that what we're really looking at is a long-term strategy for real estate investors. If you're looking at doing something like, holding rental properties, that's a different strategy than flips. Flips is just short term. You're getting your money in, you're getting it back out, you're pushing it forward. That's great. We see a lot of people that get into the game for long term holds, and the long term holds are important because that's going to give you that passive income later on in life. And it's not necessarily for immediate gratification. So, a lot of this that I'm going into, I want you to research or Google something called the marshmallow test. And there was an experiment that really defined a couple things about personalities and delayed gratification. And I promise this has a point, but being able to delay gratification shows that people are, or this experiment showed that the children in this test, let me just go ahead and frame this out. The children in this test were sat in the room and they were giving a plate with a marshmallow on it. It said, "Hey, if you can wait 5 minutes, we'll come back and we're going to give you two marshmallows." And I believe it was something like 80% of the kids didn't wait the 5 minutes. So they didn't get the second marshmallow. However, the other 20% or whatever the fraction was, I think it was 80-20, they got their second marshmallow. But they tracked the behaviors of these kids and they stayed in this experiment for years. And later on in life, they found that those 20% that were able to delay gratification ended up being more successful in general. And with that, we've approached our investing similar to that style. In real estate rentals, you've got certain strategies. You're going to purchase a rental, you're going to put 20% down, and you're going to just take that, you're going to pay down that note. The tenant's going to pay it down for you. It's going to appreciate. All things go well. You'll never have repairs. You'll never have evictions. Bull stuff, right? That's not exactly what happens. But all that to say, ideally, that's on paper what you are looking to do. You're going to pick up these assets. They'll appreciate over time, and then once the mortgage is paid off, you get to enjoy that cash flow. That money every month comes to you so that you're able to live a life without going and punching your clock or continuing to work. So that was really kind of how we got started. Our goal was to pick up these properties and say, all right, fantastic. These are going to be great for retirement because in 20 years, 30 years, we're going to be sitting around. We're going to have a few properties paid for, which is fantastic. Well, we turn around and much, much to my normal fashion, I didn't stop at one or two or three. I just kept going. Because nobody told me I couldn't, and the bank kept saying yes. So that's what we did. But the key to that was being a good steward of money. And what I mean by that is there's another school of thought whenever somebody buys a property to go over here and refinance the maximum that the bank would allow them to finance. So, for example, let's just say that there's $100,000 that you buy a property for, and the bank would give you, say 70%, 80% of whatever the bank value comes in at, or the property's value comes in at. So if it appraised for, say, $200,000, and the bank's going to give you 80% of the appraisal value, well, you bought it for 100, it appraised for 200, the bank would give you $160,000. So a lot of people, they favor what's called the cash out refi method. To where now they're able to go and they're going to refinance that extra $60,000 above what they paid for the house. That is a non-taxable event. By the way, not legal or tax advice, blah. But all that to say, they'll take that 60,000. They're like, all right, cruise, yes. Car, yes. Day-to-day living expenses, cool, great. Well, here's the problem with that. Now you have a mortgage for $160,000, and you don't have a lot of wiggle room if stuff goes sideways. All right. And I say that lovingly because I want you to understand that things rarely, if ever, go according exactly to plan. So being able to pivot is important. And whenever we go to pick up our properties, um, we we have a certain method that we do where we will do a cash purchase. So we access capital, right? And we use capital to purchase cash. If I've done my job, the job that Kathy hires me and keeps me around to do is to negotiate good value deals. So if I go over here and I pick up a property for, say, $40,000 and it needs $20,000 in work, so I need $60,000 in capital, right? Now, what I'll do is I'll access the capital, I'll pull it down, and we pay cash, and then we refinance the property once we get those repairs done. Now, what do I refinance for? Again, let's say that I bought it for 40, fixed it up, I've got 60 in it. So I'm 60 in. Okay. Keep with me on this. And it appraised for $100,000. And the bank says, congratulations, Lee, you made a good deal. We'll finance 80% of this for you. So you can finance $80,000. And which that's all well and good. Here's the problem with that. If I finance $80,000, that means I have an $80,000 mortgage. If I finance $60,000, I have a $60,000 mortgage. The reason why I say here's the problem with that is because if you look at the rates, right? So we're going to take a second and I'm just going to, let's see, do this part. So this refinance that I'm discussing that we're doing, we got quoted at 7.2%. So on 2 mortgages. All right. So I'm going to go into my handy dandy chat GPT just for the speed of it. And I told it, calculate payments on 2 mortgages, one with a 20-year amortization at 60K, another one with a 20-year amortization at 80K at 7.2% interest. Give me the principal and interest payments. All right. So going back to where we were, let's say that I financed $80,000. $80,000 is $629.88 per month based on that calculation. Now, granted, I'm only in it for 60, so I pulled an extra 20,000 out. Now, I'm probably going to be getting for us, we're looking at about 1,200 a month whenever we spend 60. That's our target, target minimums that we try to get. So let's say that 629 a month. And actually, let me load up my calculator. I'll share my screen with you and let you see a little bit. There we go. All right. So I'm going to share this so you don't have to just stare at me. All right. Here we are. Now, let me see if I can make that a little bit. There we go. Cool. So 7.2 and gross monthly rent 1,200. We can ignore all this up here in the quick offer analysis. This is a GRM method that I use. Nothing to, don't worry your pretty little head about it. Property taxes on that property, you're probably looking at like 800 a month or 800 a year. So you're looking at, call it 70 a month. It's going to be 85 for a good replacement policy. I don't pay for that. Cool. So if we go in and we say we're going to look at these kind of properties, we're going to purchase at this amount. If I did an $80,000 mortgage, I'm going to have a monthly, what we call the PCF, the positive cash flow. It's only going to be $55. Like, really? See, to me, if I really didn't care about that, and I'm like, all right, well, these are grade A or class A properties. They're never going to have repairs that exceed 10%. Some months you do, bruh. Let me tell you, some months you do. So I don't like that. Now, if I go over, now that would be an $80,000, right? So it lets you calculate your cap rate. So you're, even though single family homes, I don't necessarily use cap rate. It's in there for the calculator. Cool. Love it. But let's see what 60,000 looks like. So 60,000 pushes us closer to a 14% return. And again, look at this. All of a sudden, I jump by $150 a month in PCF. So that's $212 a month. Can you see why I'm saying that this is important? Whenever you're looking at doing these kind of deals, analyzing these, you want to make sure that you have cushion, that you have, that room to maneuver. So would you say that if a water heater comes up and has to be replaced at a cost of, say, $1,200 on your maintenance reserve, that is 10 months of your maintenance reserve. However, you can't really help that. If you pulled $80,000 on that remodel, you can't help that because it's not like that 55. That's 10 months. It's going to be another 550, right? But $212 in addition to the maintenance reserve at 320. Now, in less than 4 months, you've made that repair back. What's that do? Well, now you're not catching up all the time. You're able to recoup that expense faster. And if you have less than 10 units, 10 doors doing these kind of numbers for you, then you need all the cushion that you can get to be able to survive those swings. If you happen to play poker, that's one thing that they talk about, like, right, the ebbs and the flows of the game, the swings of the game. And in real estate investing, there are swings to the game. So you have to be able to either have the money in your bank account to pay for these things, access to capital, which is only going to further increase your leverage position if you over refinance, or to where these will help you build healthy reserves. So I just want to share this with you and let you see that this is why we do what we do with our refinances. So it was, 5 years ago, we had one note that we moved over to another bank, and now we're coming up for that balloon because these loans, even though these are 20-year terms on the amortization schedule, they're actually only 5-year balloons. So there are lenders that give you 30-year terms and everything else. Don't worry your pretty little heads about that part. But if you're sitting here running these numbers like this, there's certain things that banks will and won't do for you. And these are typically your local lenders where you can develop a relationship, where you can actually go over and call your banker and say, hey, look, this is what I need to do. I need to pitch it over to committee. Can we make something happen? Call Chase, call them big shops and see if you just have the direct ear of their committee. No. So that's one of the reasons why I want to make sure that we're over here doing the things that we do. We want to be good stewards of the money for our investors, for our banks, for anybody that we do business with. We want them to see that, hey, look, we're going to be responsible with this. All that to say, in 2020, when the eviction moratorium came out, This is where a lot of investors found themselves naked, right? They were, yeah, Richard. It's actually in school. So if you go over to your resources into the classroom, it's one of those there. It's free if you, I think you hit level 3 or 4 in school, and it's yours. Matter of fact, you hit me up after this to send me a DM, and I'll get it over to you. But whenever you're out here working on these things, you watch other people come and go. Whenever we were first starting, Catherine and I, we were going to these meetings, our eyes just big as sausage, just trying to take it all in. This person's got 5 properties. Oh my God. This person's got 25. Oh, can you imagine? And that's great. And then you see some of the other people that come in and they tout one strategy or another. And I don't always buy into everybody else's strategy. I kind of take what makes sense and I blend a little into it. I blend a little intuition. I blend a little math, to kind of come up with what we do. And all that to say, you see these people that they came in and they're like, yeah, I'm a 1% buyer. A 1% buyer means that, they'll buy a property for $100,000 if it makes $1,000 a month in rent, and then it goes up exponentially or goes up according to whatever the rents are versus the sales price. Has to hit the 1% up rule. And to me, that just always sounded so risky because I ran it through the calculator, and I'm like, man, the debt service on that, that's kind of crazy. But see, this is one thing that, and I'm going to back this around. So I want you to understand that this right here, whenever we do these loans, what did I tell you? I paid. I paid 40,000 for the purchase. I paid 20,000 for the remodel, so I'm $60,000 in. Whenever I refinance my $60,000 back out, how much money did I effectively leave in the deal? I'll wait. I'll wait. Okay. All right. I didn't leave any money in the deal. That's the beauty about how we do this because whenever you go to purchase, a bank is going to want a down payment, right? They're going to look for this 20% down, sometimes 25, and then it has to meet these what called the ratios, the SER ratios. A lot of banks right now they're at 1, some banks are going 115 and some are going to 125, which means that essentially the income from the property has to offset the mortgage amount by 1% or not 1%, by whatever it's making, right? So after you go through, and here it'll be easier to explain if I bring this up again. So if we go in and they look at this and they say, okay, great, his total expenses are 987. All right. And let's say that one or 1200. So let's round that up to 1,000. So this would be a debt service coverage ratio because the rent offsets my expenses plus another $200. So that'd be a 1.2. All right. A lot of banks they're looking at one, DSCRs of 1. Now, if you go in there and you do that, great. But Kendrick actually hit the nail on the head. Whenever I refinance that back out, I'm getting infinite return because I didn't leave any money in these deals. I financed my 60 back out, and then I go and I'm making $212 a month. Scale that up across a number of properties, and say you've got 2 properties. Now you're passively making a couple thousand a month, but also it's not just about taking that money and doing something, just going on a cruise or anything crazy. What you want to do is you want to take that and you want to reinvest it. You want to snowball your payments, right? Because whenever you amortize a loan, let me show you an amortization schedule. Show me the amortization of this. Now, amortization basically is just the killing of the debt. It means that you're paying down the loan. Once I get that example up here, I'll show you there's a certain point, in the amortization of your debt that really makes a lot of sense. So let's see, load them up. All right. Let me see if I can get this. Present, share screen. All right. Here's the amortization table. Whenever you start with any loan, you're going to start at payment one, which means that if I financed the, again, $60,000, my payment is 472 a month. It would have been like 690 or something like that if I would went with the 80,000. But all that to say, look, only $112 goes to your principal, but 360 goes to your interest, and there's your balance. Okay. Well, over the course of going through these next 5 years, these 60 months, you're going to take that $60,000 payment. You're going to get down to about 51.9. Now, while that's not horrible, I mean, you're getting there. You could do a few things. You can make extra payments, and then there's another thing that you can do called flipping the Elwood table, where essentially you can go to your bank and you can identify your next payment, and there's a certain form letter that you can use, and you can say, hey, look, I'm sending in this principal payment, which means that I do not want it to be applied to my principal balance. I want it to go to payment number two. It goes to payment number two. This is my resulting balance. I will resume payments at payment number three. So now you just eliminated $360 worth of interest by doing that. So let's say that you go over there and you take that 250 a month, 255, something like that we've got. So if you made your first payment and then you say, okay, great, but I did this conservatively. I want to make sure that I'm paying this well. Here's the principal interest, or here's the principal payment, here's the principal payment, and my next payment becomes payment 4. So now I've already pushed down to 546. I've eliminated paying over $700 in interest just in that 1 month of that extra cash flow that I didn't overfinance. I know this is probably getting a little bit more technical. This is stuff that I typically like really do on consults and one-to-ones, but yeah, I hope that the people watching this are really kind of catching what I'm saying and that you're following what I'm picking up, because this is so crucial, right? I'll get into the details again here in school. I'm going to turn off the stream here in a minute, but I want to share a little bit more of this with just the public audience before we go into the particulars. By doing this, it allows you to accelerate your payments, right? Because you're going to see where at a certain point, you're going to actually tip. This table is now at 191 to 280, all right? That's payment 90. But if we come down here, look at this. Where's your tipping point? 234, 237, 236, 236. Payment 126 is when it flips. Now you're officially paying more to principal than you are to interest. So what I tell people is you want to find a way to responsibly push your way down this table as much as possible. And again, you want to do it in 5 years. So you've only got 60 months. So one of the things that Catherine and I do is that whenever we flip a house, okay, great, because that proceeds from the house flip can come over here and push us further down. Push us further down, push us further down. Or if we have a property that doesn't make sense for us to continue to keep as a rental, we're like, you know what, the market's good for it right now. We bought well, we can exit well, and we can pay down debt. We do that. I would say that if you do that and you're disciplined in what you do, you're going to have a pretty cool situation, because we had this one package, like I said, 5 years ago, and it's actually up for balloon. So with that, I took it over. I'm talking to some other lenders, and we're in the process of refinancing that package. Now, I'll say this part, and then I'm going to disconnect the stream. So you can get over here and you can join the school community and come in there to where it's a little bit more. I'm willing to share the information that I have a little bit more publicly than just blah out there for anybody to use. So we started 5 years ago with $850,000 in debt, right? With this package that we secured. Now, again, bear in mind, we started with $6,000 10 years ago. So for us to have built that portfolio, you understand that that had to be worth over $1.2 million. Now, I'll say that that's one of the portfolios that we've got that we've built. See, if you look back in my timeline, you're going to see that I didn't have so much gray hair. I've put in work to make this happen, and so has Kathy. So all that to say, we've been working to make this work so well, and we're just kind of blown away by how well it worked. Because today we're getting the final payoff for that package, and it's under 230. Right. So over the course of the past 5 years, we've paid down, sold off, done a few things, but over $600,000, right? That we paid off. What's that do for somebody? It gives you room to breathe because whenever the market shifts and there's uncertainty and vacancies are high and tenants aren't paying and all this chaos, by not over leveraging yourself, you're in a position to really make the win. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the YouTube and the Facebook stream. If you want to follow along, the free trial, it's active right now for the school community. Just get in there and take your 7-day free trial and continue the call, and great. But also, if not, then I'll see you when I see you. And let's see, we'll stop this part. Actually, yeah. Well, hang on a second. I don't know if I can turn that part off yet. Mhm. No. Okay. Yeah. So it will delete the post, but I'm going to go ahead and get that done. And yeah, Kendrick, spot on. Thank you. Thank you. And that's I just saw that. It's a hell of a point. All right.